Welcome to Day in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone. Excited to dig in on a whole bunch of things that are happening across the city. And as always, we'll start with Mayor Concanon. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Samantha. How are you?
I'm good. I know it was a little rainy, but there was still a fun dog walk this weekend. Did our first dog, Sophie, have some fun in her new jacket and hanging out?
She did, yeah. So the Lions Club put on their annual Lions dog walk down at Horn Pond at Lions Park, and despite the gloomy weather, there was still a small but hearty band of dog
Good.
walkers, and yeah, we had a good time. Anne Marie had made up a nice little pink raincoat for Sophie to wear that did say "first dog," so she got a kick out of that. Of course, we had to bring it to the groomer right afterwards because she insisted on rolling around in dirt. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and thank you to the Lions for organizing that. Frank Demar in particular, he does a lot, organizes a lot of the events, comes up with a lot of good ideas for the Lions Club. He's a dedicated Lion, so kudos to him and his team for a successful event.
Yeah, I saw some really fun pictures. I was tempted to bring my Luna, but she objected to the rain quite heavily that morning, and
Yeah,
and her summer just won out.
we had a special guest, Officer Delaney from Woburn PD, brought down our canine police dog Odin, and he was well behaved, and
Awesome.
so everyone got to see him. And Sean is getting Odin out and about more and more now, so that's a great addition to our police department. He's a working dog, but it's also nice for the residents to see him out and about and interact with him.
Yeah, that's great. It means he's really far in advance in his training and is a
Yep.
beautiful dog, as
Yes.
well as a really hard worker and doing really
Yep.
important work with us. So
Yep. Yeah, it was a good day.
fantastic.
It was a lot of fun.
That's excellent. Last week, I had the opportunity to go in and see Housing Chair Haggerty. Now, many of us in Woburn know Rich because he lives in Woburn and has been here a really long time. But every once in a while, we get to have a little bit more of a formal interaction. That was a great opportunity for me to go down the State House and really talk about housing in the context of his new role and specifically around affordable housing. So we had a great conversation, talked about a lot of things. But one of the things that we talked about was ADUs. Now, we know that City Council is looking at how we are going to put sort of local restrictions and guidelines around ADUs. We know those things have sometimes been a little bit evolving and what the
Yeah.
expectations are. And we did talk about that. But we also talked about some of the things that might be positive once all that sort of logistics work is put in place and finalized, even though that might take a bit of time. There's some things that I know I'm kind of looking forward to. Wanted to get your perspective on some of the things we might be able to gain from ADUs once we get through kind of the sloppy hard part we're in right now.
Yeah. So first, congratulations to Rich Haggerty on getting a chairmanship. He's a hard worker, and he does his best to represent Woburn in at Beacon Hill. So we congratulate him on that. Wish him the best in his new role. And I am glad he made the time to meet with you to talk about specific housing issues here in Woburn. As you say, the accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, are they aren't a new phenomenon, but this regulation, this law is new. Um, you know, it's another instance where something is given to the city of Woburn to do something with. You know, we've had our discussions in the past about state mandates and things being handed down for implementation. And, you know, occasionally we bristle at the notion of the state telling us what to do, but we also try to work with them and try to implement these things in a way that serves the interest of the residents of Woburn. So, you know, we did that with the MBTA Communities Act. We're doing it with this accessory dwelling unit where we as a team, you know, my office, the city solicitor, the city council, of course, planning, board of appeals, building commissioner, everyone has kind of weighed in on what the regulations mean, what they say, and how best to implement them here in Woburn. There isn't a ton of wiggle room. It's a state law, and you shall implement it. But there are some reasonable restrictions, reasonable measures of implementation that the communities are allowed to do. So that is in the process now. It was introduced at the planning board level, and they weighed in with some comments. Members of the public weighed in. Now it's in front of the city council for them to add their input and produce an ordinance that'll be on the books here in Woburn. So that is making its way through. Um, in terms of benefits to the city of Woburn, again, even though it was something that was directed that we do, I do think that there are things that can benefit our residents. The notion of an in-law apartment is not. I don't think it's anyone's opposed to it here in Woburn. I think the devil's in the details, obviously, but there are plenty of people who have had similar in-law setups probably over the years, and now those are on the books. They're legal, they're acceptable. So I think that helps just to bring people in, from the shadows. And I think the notion of, you know, allowing people to use their property a little bit differently in a way that might allow their young adult children to perhaps uh, stay with them a little bit longer in better accommodations, maybe save a little money for the future. The other end of the spectrum, maybe, Grammy and Grampy can move in and stay with the family. So those family, dynamics and those family outcomes, I think are positive. So I'd like to see us seize upon that. Now, of course, the state law is a little broader than that. It's not simply family, but we'll work to implement those in a way that works best. But I do think those are some of the positive measures that can help our residents. And again, at the end of the day, people have a decision to make how best to use their property within the law. So I guess we'll see how this plays out. But it is currently in front of the city council. And to your point earlier about the ever evolving nature of this, as is the case in many instances, there's a state law passed, and then there's a department within state government that's charged with putting the meat on those bones, interpreting that law and creating regulations to make it so. That's the process we're in now. And we have seen those regulations change over time. So that's the other part of this. It's a bit of a moving target. So as the council tries to figure out how to best implement it, they're dealing with that aspect as well. But we'll get it done, and we'll have an ordinance put in place that'll govern accessory dwelling units, and I'm sure we'll make it work here in Woburn.
Yeah, the example you gave was something sort of near and dear to my heart. My father-in-law has since passed, but he lived with us for a little while, and it wasn't ideal, to be honest, because the natural place for him to go, one of my kiddos gave up their room and moved in with another, which is great, but it was upstairs, and those stairs became increasingly difficult for him. So,
Yeah.
having some more flexibility in how we use the space that we had would have been nice for us, but all of those things need to be done in a safe and thoughtful way, and make sure we protect our neighborhoods and home
Yep.
values and all those things. So I look forward to this progressing and coming out with some things that hopefully will be good for all of us.
Yep. I think it'll be a positive outcome. The council is looking closely at it. It is their job to pass ordinances, and I think they're going to gather all the information they need. They're going to take a snapshot of the most current evolution of this law, and if it needs to be adjusted as we go, I'm sure they can do that.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about housing in a different context. So, there's been a lot of discussions about an overlay district in Central Square related to a housing project that's been proposed. There's public hearings that are happening. I don't want to go through the detail of value of this specific project and good and bad and all of that, but I did think it would be helpful because I learned a lot talking to you about procedurally what happens. So we have a subcommittee meeting tonight, and then I believe there's an April date where there's a continuation of a public hearing. Well, how does city council evaluate projects like this, and sort of what are the mechanisms that are in place to make sure that this is a robust process and what happens next?
So I do want to start by saying this is the purview of the city council, and I respect their role in all of this. I respect that they are an equal partner in our city government. And this is clearly a matter for the council, but I did spend 10 years on the council. I have a familiarity with how this works. We did have a couple of overlays come up in the past. So I guess I'll speak briefly on it. I would suggest that anyone watching who wants to dig deeper into the details, the best place to go is probably your city councilor, your ward councilor, or your councilor at large. They're well versed on this. This is their bread and butter because it's a zoning matter. So basically, what we're talking about is not to get too deep in the weeds, but as people are probably aware, the city is divided up into different zones in which certain types of development are allowed. There's R1, residential one, where only single family homes can be. There's, business downtown, there's industrial park, there's a series of zones. And those zones are developed by the city council with assistance from the planning board, the planning department, other entities. But it's ultimately the way our city council has determined our neighborhoods and our city should be carved up. Now, those zones exist today, and they continue to exist even when there's an overlay district proposed. So the rules that are in place for development in Central Square are still the same rules. What's proposed is something to sit on top of those rules, another option, thus the term overlay. And again, this is more often than not, this is a petition that is brought by an interested private party who would like to see the city rezone a section or add this overlay for some particular project. But ultimately, it really is the city council's decision to decide how to create these zones within our city and whether it's appropriate to have an overlay rest on top of an existing zone. We've done this in several different places across the city. Most recently, we did an overlay district where the cinemas is. That was for life science. So these are ultimately city decisions as to how we want the zone set up. So what's in front of the council right now is a proposed Central Square overlay district, and it would create different rules for what could be developed down there. So it's the city council's job to listen to the proposed ideas, and of course listen to the residents, not only of the direct neighborhood but also across the city, so that they can make a decision as to how they think the city of Woburn wants to carve itself up, essentially. So that's what's in front of the council now. And I've reviewed these matters when I was on the council, and it's really easy to get caught up in what might the subsequent petition for development look like while you're looking at the overlay district itself. And I think it's just natural to say, okay, if we were to allow this overlay, what might we see get developed? So that's kind of what's happening now. There's a petitioner proposing a certain overlay with a particular development in mind. So that's why you're hearing details about what it might look like if the overlay is approved. But we really are we're at step two. Step one was the planning board looking at it. They voted favorably with some areas that they wanted the council or suggested the council should look closer at, things like density, height, parking on site, things like that. And the council is doing just that, and they would ordinarily do that anyway. So that's the beginning steps, the overlay itself. If the overlay was approved, you would see a follow-on petition from the proposed, development in the area. And that's kind of why we're having the two conversations at the same time at the council level. If the overlay district is not approved, then the underlying zoning still remains. And, people who live in that area can develop their property based on that underlying zoning. So as I understand it, there's an ordinance committee meeting tonight. By the time this airs, it will be
last
already
night.
over. Yeah, last night. And so that's on for tonight. And then there's, as I understand it, there's a full council meeting on the 15th. This matter will be on the agenda. So that's a little bit of background on how an overlay works and how underlying zoning works. But as I said at the beginning of the answer to this question, this is in the purview of the city council. I respect their role. I respect their authority. So I am watching with interest, as are many residents.
Great. Thank you for that. I think that's really helpful context for everyone is, it is something that people care a lot about, and it's nice to see people engaged in the process and
Yep.
sharing their thoughts and ideas. So that's
Definitely generated a lot of interest, and I know that the city council takes that very seriously.
yeah. Some folks who might have been downtown recently might have noticed that we have a ramp that's gone up in front of the City Hall Annex building. It's not quite open yet, but we're getting dangerously close. I thought it'd be a good chance for you to sort of give a quick update. I believe it's building inspectional services, engineering, and conservation that will go there.
Correct. So, probably 6, 8 months ago now, I'm trying to do the math. Um, the city council approved the purchase of the building next door. Most people in Woburn probably know it as the Martini Insurance Building or the Central Co-op back in the day. Perfectly situated, beautiful building right next door to City Hall. It became available. So again, with the blessing of the council, their approval, we were able to buy that building. They also approved an amount of money that would help us bring it up to speed for our use. Because it's a public building, there's certain ADA requirements and there's public restroom facility requirements. So those, as you say, the ramp is done. The restroom facilities are being upgraded as we speak. We're outfitting the building for the use of the building department, conservation department, and the engineering department. We've had a small ad hoc committee that gathered to figure out the best use of that building and the layout. So that's well underway. Time frame, I guess I would say maybe 6 weeks or so from now, you'll see those departments occupying that space. It's a bit of a gradual process because they have to sort through what they have here in City Hall, figure out what to bring, how best to bring it. It's a process, not unlike, moving out of your home to a different home. So it takes a little bit of time. And there's no hard and fast deadline. There's no pressure to make it so. We want to do it correctly. So I'd say, 6 weeks, maybe Memorial Day or so. Expect to see some of those departments working there. Um, that also would allow us the opportunity here at City Hall for some of the other departments that remain here to spread out a little bit and reutilize some of that space that's vacated. And I think that'll be a good thing. We're a growing city, growing city government, and there's only so much space here in City Hall. It'll be nice to spread some of that out so we can better serve the residents and just kind of breathe a little bit better here within City Hall. So that's the follow-on piece of all this, which we've begun that process as well, discussing what happens when these departments leave. So I think you'll see a fairly smooth transition, and hopefully people will be pleased when they get into the new building with how nice it is, and they'll also be pleased when they come here to City Hall to interact with the departments that are here and see that there's a little more space and it's a little easier to do the job here.
Excellent. Before I let you go, I have to talk about Saturday. We've got an exciting 250th celebration of Battle Road that's planned. I know, I'm sure you're looking forward to participating
I
in that.
I definitely am. Those who know me well know that I'm a Revolutionary War uh, aficionado, or at least I'm interested in it. And if you know me well, you know that I've gone to Lexington Green every year for probably the last 30 to 35 years. So this is a big deal for me. And I guess the point we wanted to make was, with everything happening in our nation at the 250th, and Lexington and Concord being essentially the hub of it all, we weren't looking to steal anybody's thunder or to compete. But it is important to note that, people from Woburn did participate in that, and we played a role. And the role we played was marching along the Battle Road over to Lexington to try to help. So we've centered our activities on the Battle Road. We've had a committee working for several months now to try to clean up the area a little bit, bring more attention to it. We've got a couple of nice, tasteful plaques and small maps set up over there. We've cleaned up the area, and we're going to do a little event on Saturday to highlight Woburn's role in the founding of our nation. And again, it's not to try to compete or to try to outshine anybody else. We just think it's important to recognize the small but important role that Woburnites played. So that's what we're looking forward to on Saturday. I know the weather doesn't look great as we look at the long-term forecast today, but I would encourage people to come on out and join us. I think it'll be a fun morning. It's relatively brief, but I think it's important that we pause and commemorate this. It's really important. 250 years doesn't come around all that often. So I'd encourage people to join us.
Hey, if we can sit in the rain and the snow and the sleet for a Halloween parade, we can show up with our rain jackets on if needed. But it's still too early to tell. We'll see what the weather
That's
is
right. We'll
in a couple
keep
of
our
days.
fingers crossed, hope for the best. There's some information on the website, and I know we've been putting additional
Yeah.
updates out there. So hopefully people get the word, and if they're at all able, they can join us, even if they just stop by briefly and pause to remember those who helped found our nation.
Absolutely. And I think it'll be really fun to hear from a Minutemen that will be giving us tours of Battle Road and hear the commemoration, of course, and music and food and all the things that are going to go along with it.
Yep, should be fun.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Smith.
Next up, we're going to talk about some really fun stuff with Mackenzie. Welcome, Mackenzie.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks so much for having me.
This is the time of year that I remember where my children were getting antsy for summer, and I was starting to twitch, thinking, what am I going to do after week one of summer with them to keep them busy? So I'm really glad that you joined us today to talk about a sports therapy program that you've been able to find and make available to residents to apply for. I thought we'd start our conversation there today.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm super excited about this program because it's so unique. So we are partnering with a mental health agency called Doc Wayne. And we are going to put on a summer sports-based therapy group for students in Woburn. So this is for ages 7 to 16. And it's a really interesting program because it kind of combines some therapeutic work and some clinical work, but while you're having fun. So from what I've heard, there's different types of sport. There's soccer, there's flag football, there's basketball, there's capture the flag. So kind of what you'd expect to see at like a summer camp, but it's at D1 in Burlington, which is a really cool facility. If you haven't been there, I recommend anyone going there. A giant indoor turf, and it's fantastic. The cool thing about this program is that because it is a therapeutic program, there is almost probably no cost to families for their kids to be sent to this program as long as the student is eligible. And so the reason why I say that is because this is an insurance-based program. I think there's probably one type of insurance that there may be a copay, but otherwise you probably won't see a bill. And so that's really fantastic because I know there's financing these summer camps are they're just getting more and more expensive and more crazy with the price tag. So this is a wonderful program. And there are Spanish speaking clinicians. So I'm excited that can probably support as many kids as we can there.
I love it. And where can folks go to get some additional information to confirm if they're eligible and if eligible and want to start the application process?
Yeah, so folks can reach out to me. I have the intake form myself and I can complete it with families. Also, the form has been sent out to Woburn schools. So if the kid is currently working with an adjustment counselor or a school psychologist, they're able to help sign the student up as well. You can have 2 students from a family go. You can have 3 students from a family go. There's no cap, and we're still accepting intakes now. And once somebody does complete the intake and gets that form over to me, Doc Wayne themselves will set up a Zoom call with the family to kind of complete the intake and make sure the program is a good fit for the student. And then the program will begin in the summer. It's a weekly program on Thursdays.
Awesome. It's such a great opportunity for people to have some fun and get in a supportive environment as well. And the almost free most of the time is a very positive thing for folks as well, of course.
Yes,
We do
absolutely.
also have something for parents coming up, right? That's really focused on Minding Your Mind is a program that you put together that's really focused on parents of teens and preteens, which we know is a challenging time for everyone. I lived through and
Mm.
survived that, but I still have some battle scars. Even though my kids are awesome and we're great, there were still challenges, right? You're growing and changing and challenging assumptions and rules and ideas at that age. So, tell us a little bit about that program. And again, I believe it's May 1st, if I have that correct.
Yes, you are correct. Yes, so the program is Thursday, May 1st, at 5:30 to 6:30 at our Community Resource Center. So the program is called Minding Your Mind. It's a 1 hour program for parents of middle and high school students. And it's a really interesting program because they have all these different types of, trainings and courses for, both parents, students, teachers, whatever have you. The one that we are going to support is for parents, and it's to support parents in supporting your middle or high school age student while they manage the normal stressors and anxieties of everyday life. So, I've had a lot of parents say, my kid is so stressed out about finals. My kid's graduating middle school and going to high school. My kid is graduating high school. And there's all these different stressors that, we're faced every day, not to mention, the social media and school tests and getting ready for college or what have you. And sometimes we just don't know where to start to support these kids who are facing these anxieties. So this course, this program is kind of a discussion for parents to learn how to best support their students, how to build a coping skills tool set with your child, to understand their stress responses, and to spot the different short-term and long-term stress relief and support their long-term care. The program itself is free, which is fantastic for anybody who wants to attend. And our speaker is a educational psychologist named Lisa Price, and she's a fantastic speaker. I've been able to watch a couple of her programs, and I'm just really excited to be able to bring this to Woburn. So there is a registration link on our flyer that we have, I think, posted on our different city platforms. But like I said, the registration is free. The registration link is purely just so we can get an idea of who's going to be there.
I think that's
Um,
great. And, as a mom who raised four kiddos, something that worked with one child doesn't always work with another, right? Everybody has unique perspectives. So I love programs like this where it gives you sort of a toolkit of things that you can try and adapt to, your own different moods, but also the different children that you might be having in your life, whether they're your own children or folks you care for in other ways. There's all kinds of opportunities to use and leverage what's being taught here.
yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because this is open for caregivers. It doesn't necessarily need to be a parent, a biological parent. So anybody who is a caregiver of a middle or high school age student is welcome to come. And if anybody has any questions or wants more information, they're certainly welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer them.
So I know today we were really mostly talking about teens and all things that are coming up, but I can't not talk about our Live Free Fun Run and Walk that we have coming up. We'll have you back on and talk a lot more detail about this as we get closer to the June 8th date. But we are starting to take registrations, and that gives us a sense so we can plan and have all the right supplies and resources available. So I wanted to just to give a little bit of a shout out about it, and of course, our producer will make sure to put the information link on the site as well.
Yes, I'm excited for hopefully the first of many of the Live Free Fun Run and festival. So there'll be an optional fun run, but also a festival at Ice House Park at Horn Pond in Woburn. There's gonna be games, food trucks, a DJ, speakers, giveaways. So it's a great way to spend your Saturday, a beautiful place to be. And it's a movement for awareness of mental health and substance use. And it's for support, it's for our community. So I really hope to see everyone there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are in the audience, we have a panel coming up this Thursday that's really all about accessibility when we're organizing events. We have some great panelists who are going to join us. Mary Paris, who's a resident, happens to be a neighbor of mine as well. She's a HR professional, but also on the board of Know Your Neighbor. We have Jan Fuller, who's on the chair of the Commission on Disability. We have Adam Chapman, who is, aside from being a fabulous radio veteran and host, is also on the Woburn CPAC, which is Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and his adult son, who was a former student at Woburn School System. So it's going to be a great opportunity. I have some questions to guide our conversation. It'll be very interactive. Hope to see many of you there. And as always, Woburn, Please continue to take good care of each other.